Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this session. I'll introduce myself in a minute, but this is a session on AI. All the pictures you see in this presentation are, of course, AI generated. There's a couple of videos as well, everything AI generated too. I'll try to make it as practical as possible. At any point, if you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me and ask. The more interactive we make it, the better for everybody. It makes for a far better experience if you ask me questions as we go along. My name is Nico Sumillo. I'm a full-time academic, so I'm at University College London, and I run the Bartlett Real Estate Institute. And maybe 3-4 years ago, we've put together a team looking at the use of AI in real estate in general. So the team has 3 people on it. My background is in economics and finance. I do some work for the Bank of England. I sort of focus on research in the financial economics of real estate. And that's my perspective on AI. Then there is Thomas, whom you see in the middle, 25 years in the profession, all the most exciting business lines, honorary professor at our institute, also has a PhD, Harvard educated, looking at everything that we do from a practical perspective. And then the star of the team you see on the right-hand side, which also happens to be my wife. She's a lecturer at University College London, a physicist by training, but right now all she does is AI engineering and AI education. And as you can see, we have a mix of skills on the team. Some of us are smart and good looking, and some of us go out and present. So I'm gonna let you work out which part of the team is here with you today. The point I was trying to make is I'm here taking credit for the work of the whole team, but they're much smarter than I am. Before we get on, I just wanted to ask you 2 very simple questions. First, how many of you have used ChatGPT? Everybody, excellent. The second, how many of you can define artificial intelligence? Interesting, isn't it? Nobody in the room. And don't worry, this isn't something extraordinary. We see this all the time because everybody has been talking about artificial intelligence, but actually defining what we mean by intelligence in the sense of using artificial intelligence is actually quite opaque. Now, the way we think about this and the easiest way to understand this is in the phrase artificial intelligence. Intelligent simply means able to learn. Right? So this is a piece of software that has the ability to learn from data, from experience, to sort of build up its own knowledge base and its own understanding. Traditionally, if you write software, what you would do is you would give the machine a prescription, or you would give it a recipe to do something very specific. Everything the machine would do would be in that recipe. With AI, essentially what you do is you give the machine a goal, and then you let it learn for sometimes a very long time, and experiment, and create its own rules that will guide you to achieve that goal. Think about this as rather than having a recipe that you follow in order to prepare a certain meal, you define the meal, and you give the computer all the ingredients it needs, and then you let it go through trial and error and experiment. And eventually, the machine will learn through what I like to call a very mathematically sophisticated trial and error process, how to prepare the meal that you would like to get. And this is the simplest way of explaining what artificial intelligence actually is. It's not a new concept, has been around since 1950s. The first large language models that are the precursors for ChatGPT have been around since 1953, maybe 54. The reason we are now talking so much about AI is because the 3 things that you need in order to train an AI model came together very recently at the kind of scale and at the kind of sophistication that you need in order to create something akin to the models that we are so excited about at the moment. So of course you need 3 things. One is data, and we are talking about huge, truly enormous amounts of data. Think the universe of everything that is on the internet. Then you need a model, and this is what I would call the mathematically sophisticated trial and error process. And this is the algorithm that will guide the machine through what it needs to do in order to learn. And that has been around since 1950s. And then we have the training. The training is the time when the machine analyzes the data and tries to go through the trial and error process to try to figure out the rules it needs to follow to achieve the goal that you've set. And that's what gives us AI. And we've had the models since 1950s. We've been building up data for a very long time, but training, computing power, and the energy required to facilitate this, all of this only came together into sufficient resources that we need to train AI model relatively recently. So this is now what we can do. We can train AI models that we can then deploy and use without the need for data at all. Right? We can do something really, really interesting without having any data in the first place. And this is why we suddenly talk so much about generative AI. So most of the models that are out there that we hear so much about and talk about is generative AI. So this is AI that can create something genuinely new. It's been taught to create genuinely new things. Now, of course, you could argue that if it's just learning from patterns it's seen in the data, you could easily say that it's not true creativity. It's just replicating things it's seen in the data. And now you probably want to have a very philosophical conversation about what true creativity really is. And the only thing I can say on this is you should not have that conversation with an economist. So if you do want to have that conversation, find a philosopher and have a conversation with them. For me, if it quacks like creativity, if it walks like creativity, good enough. Right? In fact, there is good research that shows that if you ask humans whether they consider output from AI more creative than output from actual human creatives, they will point to the AI output and say, that's more creative. So at least it looks like something that is genuinely creative. And recently we've had breakthroughs in that technology that improve the ease of communication. We can now literally just have a conversation. I don't know if you've seen the Super Bowl ad of a company called Blunt AI that can manage your telephone conversations really well. It really feels convincing in terms of sort of the dynamic and the experience of talking on the phone. If you haven't, look it up. It's a good ad. So even if you don't want to learn about the company itself, it's a good, entertaining ad. So look it up. I do recommend it. And then, AI can now do logical thinking in a very specific way, but it can do it better than many humans. It can create original content, has access to the internet, and that means that it's extremely useful for people like us. And of course, it has been around for a very long time, but around 2003, maybe early 2003, everybody realized that suddenly we need to talk about AI, and it was the first wave of the AI hype. And maybe a couple of weeks ago, it feels like this broke the American stock market, and everybody was scratching their heads in surprise, wondering what was going on. Interestingly, my wife tells me that the fact that that company has done so well wasn't a surprise to people in the tech community, but apparently in the investor community, it was huge news. How many of you have used DeepSeek? Okay, so maybe a couple of people. It is right now my favorite model, so if you haven't used it already, I do recommend you have a look. I will show you an example of how it works in a minute. It's a lot of fun. As an academic, I will show you why I like it so much, but it not just gives you the answer to your question, but it gives you the thought process that I find extremely useful in understanding how to get to a better answer and how to get to the answer I am looking for. Again, I will give you a demonstration of this in a minute. But it feels like we've been, it feels like we've been talking about AI for a very long time, and today I'd like to touch on two things that hopefully you'll find interesting I will try to provide a new perspective on two topics that hopefully you will find relevant. One is about the way of using AI that is called agentic use of AI. And essentially, I will define this in a minute, but essentially it's about AI that can interact with its environment. And here, I would recommend that you have a look at free models that are openly available, but also very, very useful. One, I will show you this in a minute, Gemini 1.5 with deep research. I will demonstrate this in a minute. It's basically a research tool that can do a series of sequential internet searches based on the topic that you've provided. Then there is Kimi, that's a Chinese model that can search the internet, hundreds of websites in seconds, and provide you with a summary of what those websites say incredibly quickly. Then there is Google AI Studio, which is not technically an agent, but because I want to demonstrate something that hopefully you'll find interesting in interacting with your environment, I'm including that on this slide. And then finally, there are different agents from ChatGPT. Most of them are not very useful at the moment. The deep search from ChatGPT is phenomenally useful, but I don't have access to that yet, so I'm not going to be able to show it to you today. There are other agents that ChatGPT has announced that aren't very useful. I will show you an example of how you can get ChatGPT to be kind of agentic that hopefully you'll find useful in your own work. Before I do that, I just wanted to define what an agent is. An agent is basically an AI that can interact with its environment. And whether that's reading what the environment is, understanding what the environment is doing, or directly affecting what the environment is, that's just different types of agent. The idea here is that AI cannot just react to what you do, but can understand the environment. So for example, it can do things for you. It can browse the web, it can set up a new email account, or it can book a hotel or book a flight, not through an API, but through just clicking on buttons in a user interface. Now, of course, that means that the world that has been designed for humans could potentially be accessible to AI as well if it's agentic enough to understand the interfaces and the way we communicate with the world. Okay, enough me talking about theory. Let me show you some really interesting stuff. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Gemini 1.5 and ask it for the outlook for hotel markets in Europe. I will then ask it to do the research. I will show you what this looks like. It will take about 5 minutes. So we're not going to be staring at Gemini working for 5 minutes. Instead, we're going to go to Google AI Studio, and I will show you a video that Google will analyze for us that I hope you'll find interesting. And then I will go to ChatGPT 4o with tasks and set up a couple of tasks. Don't worry, I do realize that you can't read those tasks at the moment. So I will explain what those tasks do in a couple of minutes. So first, I will go to Gemini 1.5. So this is a paid Gemini account. There's a drop-down menu that allows you to choose from different models. You can go down to 1.5 Pro with research, and I'm going to paste my prompt and just hit enter. So what you will see in a minute is a suggested research process that Gemini wants to follow in order to answer this question. And this is the simplest way of explaining basically what an AI agent is. Here it says that it wants to find reports and articles on the current state of the hotel markets, then it wants to find forecasts, then some information on specific factors that drive the hotel market, find information of performance of different types of hotels, and then find information of the outlook for hotel markets in specific countries in Europe. Right? So if you were putting together this report, this is probably what you would do yourself. If it's not, if you want something else, all you need to do is you need to have a conversation and click here on edit the plan, and you can add whatever steps you want. Maybe you want to choose the countries in the first step, or maybe you want to limit the scope of the research somehow. It doesn't matter. That's not what I'm trying to show you now. All I want to do is I want to show you that if you click on Start Research, it's going to start browsing the internet and try to understand exactly what to put in the report. The report is going to consist of several sources, or well, 13, 14, depending on the type of the question you ask, sometimes up to 50 different sources, based on different websites that it's going to analyze. Here it's researching 38 websites for now. That number will increase because it's just browsing the web and trying to understand, okay, how many websites do I actually need to look at? It can read PDFs. It can sometimes read behind paywalls. That depends on how the paywall is set up. And in about 5 minutes, we will get a report back, and I will present you, and I will show you that report in a minute. In the meantime, however, there's something else that I want to show you, and that's Google AI Studio. Oh, sorry, that's ChatGPT. What I want to show you is this. So this is also a paid account, $10 per month from Google that can understand videos. I'm going to upload a video. And while the video is uploading, I'm going to play it here so that you understand what the video actually is. There's no sound, so don't worry about that. That's the video. 16 seconds, basically the experience of people checking in into a hotel. Right? You can read from that whatever you'd like. And now I'm going to ask Google to tell me how it would rate the experience of these people. And then I'm going to follow up and ask for ways to improve that experience. So you'll see here that within maybe 10 seconds, we should get an idea of an answer. So 8 out of 10. Would you agree? They have a decent experience, right? They seemed pretty happy to me. I'm not a hospitality expert, but they seemed pretty happy to me. What I do find interesting is that first it gets the score roughly right. Sometimes it's 9 out of 10, sometimes it's 10. And then I will scroll down to try to understand the logic. Friendly and welcoming staff, efficient check-in process, polite and professional, small welcoming gesture, clear communication, areas for improvement, lack of personalized conversation, mask, short interaction. Now, you're hospitality experts. You tell me if it's useful, because you can now do this for every single customer that checks in into the hotel, and it costs you pennies. Right? And if a person like myself is able to do this in a couple of minutes, it's really not that hard. Now, let's go back to Gemini research, see if it's still doing the research. Yes, it's still carrying on. So in that case, I will go back to my ChatGPT, and I will show you ChatGPT with tasks. So ChatGPT with tasks is essentially a scheduler for ChatGPT, where you can tell ChatGPT to do things in sequence. And that's very useful because, annoyingly, ChatGPT is very good at performing individual tasks. But if you ask it to do too much, it will start hallucinating, it will start doing things by halves, it will start doing things that aren't very useful. So instead, I'm just going to ask ChatGPT to do things that I would like to do step by step. And you can see that, first minute, do some research on hotel markets. Second minute, research that 2 of the aspects that you think are important but need more research, and then write a report. This is just a simple example. Yes? So less than you think. So I'm dyslexic. Thank you very much for pointing out that there's a typo. I will fix it. Ideally, you wouldn't have typos because you will get better answers if you don't have typos. But if you're like me and you're dyslexic, you just don't see the typos, it does actually a really good job understanding what you meant just because of how ChatGPT is set up. So there's actually an extra layer that tries to analyze not just what you wrote, but what you meant to say, and that will filter out all the typos. But thank you for pointing that out. So here I'm just going to click search, and within 3 minutes I will come back to that, or well, maybe 5 minutes, I will come back to that to show you the output. And this is my Gemini. I have now asked it to show me the report. I will make it a little bit bigger for you. Now, of course, you don't have the time to actually read the report, so just have a look at the headlines and ask me if you want me to, and tell me if you want me to stop anywhere and have a better look. Forecast and predictions, outlook for specific countries, key trends, Southern Europe, Western Europe, Central Europe. Yes, sorry. Yeah, I will show you that in a minute. Yes, we will. So the numbers that you see, so are references to specific sources, and there are links at the bottom of the document. You can click on the links and go to the source. I haven't been able to catch it hallucinating, so in general, it's very, very good in terms of linking the sources. The way these models work, it's probably impossible to make them completely hallucination-proof, but this is very, very good. So you can see factors impacting the market, tourism trends, performance of different hotel types, budget hotels, vacation rentals, risks and challenges, synthesis and conclusion, and here you have the sources, right? So you can click on the source, and it will take you directly to the website that it has used. It has used 24 different sources to create that report. Now, that Gemini tool is not perfect for everything. One moment. It's not perfect for everything, but what it is very good at is providing breadth. ChatGPT deep research is much better at providing depth, whereas this is extraordinarily good at providing breadth. There's a question from back?
Not really a question, more of an ask.
Yes, okay. So look, I'm going to share my email at the end of the presentation. If you want the slides, if you want the report, more than happy to share that, as long as you are going to give me some feedback on how good you thought it was. I would find it very, very useful. I'm going to bet that it's relatively good because I've done it for things that I'm an expert on, and I found it to be super useful. Interesting so far? Because there's a lot more to come. So the next class of models or class of interesting stuff that I would like to share with you are reasoning models. And this is a very interesting breakthrough in the way those models are set up, because it turns out that if you ask the model to reason and try to mimic how humans would usually try to answer questions and go through logical consequences, they get much better results. And the technical innovation from DeepSeek was not that it suddenly creates a model that is almost as good or sometimes better than ChatGPT. The technical innovation was that they got a model to realize that it needs to reason during the training process. It didn't tell the model, you need to reason. They told the model, this is the good answer that you need to arrive at. And then the model figured out by itself that in order to provide the best answer, it needs to go through the process we call reasoning. Right? That is the power of DeepSeek. There are other models. So Qwen is from Alibaba. Very good model, multimodal, so it can do most of the things ChatGPT can, but it's free. And you can download it, at least in theory. You can run it locally on your own computer. Gemini is from Google, and ChatGPT o1 is the model available from OpenAI. So the best way to explain what a reasoning model is to try to differentiate from a traditional large language model, which a traditional large language model would take a question, feed it into the model, and provide the answer. A reasoning model would take the question, design a process for answering the question, go through the process, and then provide an answer. Let me give you an example of this. I have 10 apples. I gave 2 apples away. I ate 1. How many do I have? There's a process. There is a reasoning process that will allow you to answer this question. And of course, this correct answer is 7 apples, but that means that you need to go through the process of thinking, okay, 10 minus 2 minus 1 is 7. And this is what a reasoning model would do. And as I said, what I find remarkable is that in the process of training, machines can now understand that the best way to arrive at a good answer that we want from them is to go through reasoning. That's the breakthrough that DeepSeek researchers provided. And for those of you who haven't seen DeepSeek, I will show you an example of how DeepSeek answers a question that is reasonably complicated, right? The impact of interest rates on hotel operators. Now, the reason I know you all know how complicated this is because for the last 3 years, we've lived in a world where people have been worried about that specific question. And now I will now show you first with DeepSeek and then with O1 how a reasoning model answers that question. So this is my DeepSeek interface. It looks just like ChatGPT. There isn't very much difference between the interfaces. But look at the text on your screen. That's not even the answer. That's just the thinking process. That's the answer. There's a question in the back. No. So it's it's trained on the data from the internet. Around 50% of the internet is in English, and then there are other languages. Now, it is a Chinese model, so there are issues of privacy or political bias, but you can download it, you can depoliticize it, and you can run it locally, just having fun with this type of reasoning. Now, the crazy part is that as an academic, I find the reasoning process extremely useful in understanding why it gives me the answer that it gives me. And then if I want a different answer, the reasoning process allows me to change my prompt and provide extra information to get a better answer. That's why I think it's better than ChatGPT, and at the moment it's my favorite model. Now, I do have to add a disclaimer. The reasoning that you see, it's not exactly the reasoning process that the machine goes through. It's just kind of the process that it will follow. So it's not the exact process that would follow, because the exact process is slightly more complicated, but this is the reasoning that it shares with the user, and I find it phenomenally useful. Now, if you ask the same question, so this is the ChatGPT answering questions, but if you ask the same question to ChatGPT, and you can ask the reasoning model that they have provided, they will give you kind of a reasoning equivalent, but it's not nearly as rich. It's not nearly as useful as DeepSeek. And this is why I don't necessarily think that ChatGPT is the best model for everything. So an answer that comes much faster, and it's probably reasonably good in terms of quality of the answer itself. The models are very comparable, but I do prefer to use DeepSeek just because of the logic process that I personally find extremely useful. Okay, so I could spend hours showing you different examples of cool stuff that I think you would find useful, but the last one I'm going to show you is an example of ChatGPT executing code on your behalf. So my next slide is going to be largely about revenue management and sort of using AI to do sophisticated data analysis. But these models used to cost millions to set up. Marriott or other brands used to, so they have models that cost millions to set up and train that do the revenue management. Now, you can do something that is almost as good. I mean, I'd say 80% as good in seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload some data to ChatGPT and ask it to recommend the rates that you should be charging based on some very simple data that I'm going to upload to ChatGPT. Don't worry, I will show you what the data is. The data is here. So I'm going to give ChatGPT the date, the day of the week, the market occupancy rate, and this is all in the future. So sorry, it was supposed to be in the future. The market occupancy rate and the rates that my competitors are charging. And I'm asking ChatGPT for each of those dates to tell me what I should be charging for my hotels. right? So a really, really simple model, and I do appreciate that this is a trivial example, and the only reason I'm doing this is so that it is understandable in a very short period of time. You can make it more complicated, and you can get really good answers out of it really quickly. So here, ChatGPT is telling you that it will set up a model that will design a dynamic pricing strategy for hotel rooms based on occupancy rates, competitive prices, and days of the week. And now it's going to create a simple statistical model. Well, that's not very useful. But in a minute, it will create a simple statistical model that will tell you how much you should charge on which days. And there we go. When demand is high and market occupancy is above 80%, you should set a price at premium above competitors. When the market is in moderate, you should set it slightly below the competitor, and then below competitors where demand is low. Fair enough, it will do this automatically for you. It now figured out when demand is high, when demand is low, and is now recommending you exactly how much you should charge for each day in seconds. Now, of course, you can make it more complicated. You can have your own algorithm. You can add event days to the data, whatever else you think is important. But the hard part, the statistical part, it can now do for you like this. Again, used to cost millions and take years to create, and now you can have it in seconds. Yeah, of course.
Just on that last one, so if I was to use that with customer buying data, if I was to infuse that, because if I understand that model correctly, it's simply looking at, it doesn't know what kind of hotel you are, and it doesn't know what the competitor hotels are like. But I could infuse that with my kind of hotel compared to others, and I could also infuse that with customer buying behavior that says, here's what we do, and I could add all those things together.
Yes.
And the where my head's going, by the way, on this is all revenue management models basically look at history and business on the books, and then forward forecast. It doesn't consider customer buying behavior. It doesn't consider much about forward market events. That seems to be an area where revenue management could be completely transformed.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely. If you want to forecast demand, AI can do that for you as well. My wife, one of the things that she has done for people in real estate is she teaches them how to do forecasting using AI. And if you want to forecast demand for hotels, right, AI can do that for you as well. Now, I'm not saying that this is something anybody can do in 5 minutes. It does take a little bit of skill, but we have now gone from a project that takes 3 years and requires 10 million to a project that takes 3 months and that requires 50K. So the savings are substantial. And if you want to, for example, get information on what the market is doing on certain days in the future, you can scrape them. Now, you've always been able to scrape them in theory, but right now, AI can scrape them for you. My favorite way of scraping information using AI, I took a video of myself browsing through Booking.com the other day, and then fed that to Google AI Studio and asked it to just tell me all the prices that it has seen in me scrolling through the data. And it gave me, out of 35, it gave me 33, so it missed out 2. For me, that's good enough. Right? So this is how easy it now is to set up the things that Marriott, Hilton, or Airbnb set up a long time ago, and they've exploited the competitive advantage from that for a very long time. But now it's a lot easier to do these things. Another thing that you can do is you can personalize the guest experience. So I told you already, you can set up the video understanding of the individual experiences relatively easily, but companies like Blunt AI, and again, they're not paying me, I just think that they do really interesting work, allow you to speak to your customers in a personalized way, in a way that they will appreciate. You can speak very differently to an 80-year-old customer and to an 18-year-old customer. Use different language, use different references, use different voice. And you can do that using AI, and you can try to make the experience as personalized to them as possible. You can have things like AI analyzing guest preferences or guest behavior or even sentiment analysis. I think I'm running out of time, so I'm going to have to breeze through the rest of the presentation relatively quickly. But yes.
You said at the beginning, these models, this training, one of the common denominators is it needs massive amounts of data. Right?
No, these don't. So if you just use it, a pre-trained model, you don't need any data at all.
Okay.
That's the beauty of it.
So somebody else is creating the pre-trained model.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Another really good use case is in operations. You can try to understand things like predictive maintenance. So before things break down, AI can tell you when you need to do some maintenance on them, or it can tell you exactly when you need to, for example, schedule room cleaning to optimize the efficiency of your staff using their time. For marketing, and this is one of my favorite use cases, this is a video that I've created for free in about 30 minutes. It's not for a hotel. I've created this for a fake university, but I will play it to you now. It's about a minute long. But I've created, so this is now available in London because it's a Chinese model that is available for free. You can use it in London. It doesn't cost you anything, and the results are, I think, pretty good. I will let you judge for yourselves. Pretty good. So this is where we are. We can now make these videos customized to individual customers. You can insert their names, their preferences, what they like, what they would like to see, how they would like to interact with your brand, and depending on their social media behavior or social media activity, you can have chatbots. It gets better. So this is slightly embarrassing, but I'm willing to go out on a limb here. This is an avatar of myself. It's not a recording. This is an avatar of myself that I've created. This is completely AI generated. And that means that you can now have messages that you send to people that are based on something that looks like you, that delivers a message that is personalized to every recipient. Okay, you probably can't hear it, so I'm not gonna play it. But as I said, it looks a lot like me, sounds kind of like me, good enough to convince my wife that it's good enough to be sent to people that we know. The point I'm trying to make here is that personalized marketing is going to take off just because the cost of tailoring the message to individuals and understanding what individuals want and how individuals want to behave is going to be much, much cheaper and much, much easier, but it's going to be just as powerful as it always has been. If you want to try some of this yourself, I do recommend that you go onto a website called DayCU Photos. This is something that went viral last week. Essentially, you upload your own photo, and then there's an AI algorithm based on Google Vision API that will recommend what products should be marketed to you based on your appearance in that photo. Now, of course, you will find it slightly disturbing, but I promise you it's a lot of fun. Now, in my particular case, it was wildly inaccurate, but understanding how these models work makes me realize that from one photo, you will be wildly inaccurate. From two, you will be able to get much better. From three, you'll be able to triangulate a lot more stuff. And if you download all the pictures of me from the internet and upload them, you'll be able to know quite a lot about me and about the products that you can market to myself. AI can do this for you and market things to you, but it can also help you market products in a more efficient way to your potential customers. So that's it. That's all I had for you for today. I hope you found it interesting and informative. If you are interested in using AI for hospitality, we are putting together a course on using AI for hospitality. It's not quite ready yet. At the moment, we focus on real estate. But if you are interested, drop me a line and I will let you know as soon as we have the course ready. And you can sign up to our newsletter and monitor what we do. There's a lot more use cases on the website. Again, mostly focus on real estate at the moment, but we are looking into hospitality very closely. I think AI is going to be an extraordinarily interesting development for hospitality, and I'm genuinely very excited to see how the industry changes. So on that note, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention, and